A plot to kidnap and attack not one, but two royal princesses is revealed, with the would-be attacker appearing in court today. Prosecutors say the suspect was found with cryptic notes, including the princesses' names and the word Bloodbath, alongside two axes that had Nazi propaganda carved into them. This is Scandal, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Gillespie. We're no stranger to kidnapping and attack plots here on Scandal. That's unfortunately the name of the game with a show like this. But it's not often that I also have to discuss Nazi propaganda alongside an attempted murder plot. But that's what we're in for on today's episode. And the details are truly bizarre and terrifying, once again proving that the truth is stranger than fiction. Today's scandal takes us to the Netherlands, where two young princesses were the subject of a potential kidnapping and maybe even murder scheme. For those of you unfamiliar, the Netherlands is home to the Dutch royal family. The official name of this dynasty is the House of Orange-Nassau, sometimes just called the Oranges. And this family includes these members. There's the king, 59-year-old Willem-Alexander, and his wife, Queen Maxima, who's 54 years old. Together, they share three daughters. There's 22-year-old Princess Catharina-Amalia, 20-year-old Princess Alexia, and 19-year-old Princess Ariane. And there's something really important to note here. Princess Catharina-Amalia is the heir apparent. That means she's the queen in waiting. Nothing can stop her from becoming queen unless she decides to step down. The next person in line after her is then her sister, Princess Alexia. And it's these two princesses that we're really focused on today, and that's because they were the subjects of a very sinister plot that thankfully was foiled before it could be carried out. So here's what happened. Back in February, a 33-year-old man was arrested for the attempted kidnapping and attacking of these two older princesses. Now, we don't have this man's name because of the privacy laws over in the Netherlands, and I'll discuss that more during the interview, but what we do know is that he's 33 years old and he appeared in court today. Now, according to the Associated Press, this man was arrested in Den Haag, which is a major city on the North Sea coast of the Netherlands. While Amsterdam is the capital city, it's Den Haag that's arguably more important when it comes to the day-to-day operations of running the country. Now, his arrest happened back in February. We're not sure exactly what day or how he got caught, once again, due to the privacy laws in the Netherlands. A lot of that info has yet to be released. And we're going to take a deep dive into all of it during the interview. But again, here's what we do know. This suspect was found with some terrifying notes. It's unclear what exactly they said, but they included both princesses' names alongside the word bloodbath. And if all of that wasn't terrifying enough, which by the way, it is, he was also found with two axes. Yes, axes. And the axes had creepy phrases carved into them. One axe said the name Alexia and had the word Masada carved into it, which is Israel's intelligence agency. On the other axe was carved the phrase Sieg Heil, which is a former propaganda chant used by Nazis who were following Adolf Hitler. All of this truly terrifying, but it was somehow able to stay under wraps for months. It wasn't until the April 27th King's Day celebration that all of this news broke. The suspect is set to appear in court today, and once again, we still don't know the charges, and at the time of this recording, we don't even have any information about what happened during the hearing. But we do know this isn't the first time the oldest royal daughter has faced this kind of terror. According to the New York Post, a similar plot was hatched back in 2022 when Princess Catharina-Amalia was at university in Amsterdam. This allegedly happened with a coordination of gangs and the former Dutch prime minister. Now, the Post reported that royal authorities intercepted communications between the gang members and this former prime minister, who at the time was serving as the Secretary General of NATO. For her safety, Princess Catharina-Amalia was pulled out of university in Amsterdam and away from the student housing where she'd been living with her friends. She was then forced to study out of the royal palace for over a month out of concerns for her safety. At the time, her mother told AD, quote, "It has huge consequences for her life. It means she doesn't live in Amsterdam and also that she can't really go outside." In 2024, it was revealed that Princess Catharina-Amalia was secretly moved to Madrid to finish up her studies there. She told the newspaper Bild, quote, Of course, it was strange circumstances that made me go there. I'm still very grateful to everyone who made it possible for me to walk around there in freedom. I managed to find a little more freedom there than was possible here. Thankfully, both older princesses were safe after this plot was foiled, but there is still a lot ahead in this case. So, for all that, let's throw to our interview for a deeper dive. This overall is really terrifying. I mean, yes, these two women are public facing figures, but let's remember they're in their early 20s and now they're faced with all of this. I mean, I know I need some answers about it all. And for that, I'm going to turn to a friend of the show. It's international attorney David Tafuri. David, great to see you. Thanks for coming back on Scandal. And here's my question to start. Now, in the United States, when we have someone who's charged with a crime, we get a mugshot usually, we get a name, court docs. But in this case, we only have that this guy is 33 years old. We don't have his name. I mean, is that normal for the Netherlands?
Apparently, it is normal for the Netherlands. The Netherlands has a lot of privacy laws, and those privacy laws extend to protect the criminally accused. And Netherlands is very careful about not revealing the names and identities of the criminally accused. And the Netherlands system is very geared towards rehabilitation. So I think part of the idea is to keep it somewhat anonymous so that the person has a chance to rehabilitate. And I think that's why we haven't been given more information about this criminally accused defendant.
It's just different than what I'm used to covering here on Scandal. Usually I have the name of the defendant. I've probably got photos from their Facebook. We know almost everything about them. But in this case, we only know it's a man, aged 33, and he's set to appear in court today. Now, just for our viewers, we're recording this at about 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Now, this, of course, is in the Netherlands, so they're ahead of time, but I haven't seen any reports about what has happened yet in court today when he's appearing. So, David, because we don't know his name, and I know you said that there are these privacy laws in the Netherlands, is there more information that we might be able to get from this court hearing?
Well, if he pleads not guilty and the case goes to trial, then we'll get much more information about him and about whatever defenses he decides to bring in order to try to be found not guilty.
Okay, so it kind of depends today. You know, if he pleads not guilty, we might see a trial. If he pleads guilty, is that something that could happen today?
I don't know if it can happen today, but he can plead guilty, and if he did, then he would move, pretty quickly in the process towards a sentencing.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself because there's a lot to talk about. Let's talk about the actual crime here, or accused crime, because he has not been convicted. Now,
Right.
this, I guess, happened back in February. This entire plot to kidnap and maybe harm these two princesses happened in February. It only got found out, publicly. We're talking about this in early May. I believe it was late April when all of this kind of came to light. So why do you think there was that time lapse from the time that he was arrested and this alleged plot happened to now when we're kind of talking about it?
Yeah, I found that surprising too. He's apparently been in jail since February,
Yeah.
and so he was arrested in February and incarcerated then. It is probably a combination of them protecting his privacy, but also keeping the case quiet and secret as they investigated it. Perhaps there's other leads that they have that they wanted to track down before they tipped off anyone else who might be involved about the fact that he had been arrested.
Okay, that's an interesting point because, of course, this is a high-profile family. They are the royal family of the Netherlands. So I'm sure the top dogs investigators over there are going to be, going through this with a fine-tooth comb. And we don't know exactly when this happened in February, but let's just say, for sake of argument, this happened February 2nd. So we have all of February, all of March, almost all of April of this investigation before the public at large knows about any of it. Do you think that gives a leg up to the detectives or prosecutors who are going through all this information?
Sure, it definitely does. If there were other people potentially involved, you don't want to alert them to the fact that they are getting information from this criminal defendant. He may be talking in interrogations and maybe giving them information about others who might be involved. So that perhaps is why they kept it secret. They also may have kept it secret for the privacy concerns of the targeted potential victims of the royal family.
Okay, let's talk about that because I know how it works here in the United States. Of course, you read your Miranda rights. Then they say you have a right to an attorney or the right to remain silent. We all know that part. Some people here in the States say, I'm going to stay quiet. wait for an attorney, some talk, and that's why we have a whole channel here on Law and Crime about, interrogations, because people sometimes do talk. How does it work over there? I mean, would they try to be asking this person questions?
They would be trying, and it's an inquisitorial system, criminal justice system, so they put a big emphasis on testimony. But I don't think he has to talk. He may be able to, he may have a right to, not self-incriminate himself. And so we don't know yet whether he is talking or not, both about his motivation and the conduct that led to this crime, and also whether he's talking about others who may have been involved.
Yeah, I have so many questions about the things that you pointed out here. The motive, number one, to me, I guess it makes sense because this is a high profile, two sisters. Obviously, one is the heir apparent. So the next one in line, she will become queen, the older sister. And then the second sister, the middle sister in the three, she also would be second in line. So I guess that's kind of interesting. But what is the motivation for attacking these people? I mean, is that something that prosecutors have to prove a motive?
So in Netherlands, you do not have to prove a motive. You just have to prove intent, so that the person intended to commit the crime, but you don't have to explain a reasonable basis or reason for them seeking to commit the crime. Although motive can be a part of sentencing and can play a part in sentencing as the judges evaluate what sentence to give someone if they have been convicted.
Motive to me, yeah, because it's the same here in the United States where we don't need a motive for the charges or the conviction or whatever. But it is helpful, at least to me, as the reporter going through why did this person allegedly commit the crime. I'm sure a jury likes to know a motive too. But something you and I feel like we're always talking about is the intent here, the mens rea. And I'm wondering if prosecutors think that they have enough, because we haven't even talked about this yet. The fact that there were these axes that were found with the girls, at least one of the girls' names kind of carved into the axe. Then additionally, there was some papers, some notes or whatever that had the girls' names on them. And then I keep saying girls, I should say women because they're over the age of 18. These women's names written down. And then on top of that, the word bloodbath. I mean, okay, so what are your thoughts? Does that prove intent?
Well, we also don't have a lot of information about this note that they found.
Yeah.
I've only been able to see that both princesses were named in the note and the word bloodbath was used. But it would be helpful for evaluating it to know what else he wrote in this note. And we also know that one of the princesses, the crown princess, had her name put inscribed on one of the axes by the defendant, as well as some kind of pro-Nazi text also on one of the axes. So that suggests something about the motivation, perhaps, that this was a hate crime, or this was someone who is a neo-Nazi engaging in political violence from the far right.
Okay, the Nazi involvement in all of this is not something I necessarily expected, because oftentimes on this show, we do talk about kidnapping. We talk about attempted murder. We talk about a lot of different things. I don't often see Nazi propaganda coming up. So that to me, I was like, okay, red flag. We got to focus on this. What is going on here? Now, I know in the United States, we're going to take all of this seriously. Is it the same thing over there? If there's any sort of Nazi, slogan or, hear this alleged propaganda, I guess, phrase that they have, is that something that they're taking seriously?
I think so. I believe they have the equivalent of, hate crimes in Netherlands. And so that could be evidence of this being a potential hate crime, and perhaps the defendant will be charged with a hate crime. And it also perhaps suggests that he's not acting alone, or at least he has cohorts or colleagues who are part of some sort of group that are engaged in pursuing neo-Nazi ideology. So that may be what they're trying to investigate, is there some larger group that is also potentially going to engage in violence.
And I do have to wonder because when we hear about neo Nazis here in the United States, wherever it may be, oftentimes it's these people who get in a rabbit hole, so to speak, where, they're on YouTube and they kind of, oh no, start getting these videos and then they're seeing it on Facebook and TikTok and all over the place. So sometimes a person's internet search history really kind of gives us a look into their brain or what they're thinking, their political views here. Obviously, if this person is a neo Nazi or holds those beliefs very strong on one side of the table, I guess, let's say. So is that something investigators would want to look through this guy's phone, his internet history, his journals, if he has anything like that to kind of get a window inside of his brain?
Yes, absolutely. I would bet the police and the investigators are searching through all of that. Again, to try to see if they have a bigger problem here. Are there others who are like minded who might also engage in violence, or was he a lone wolf? What was his motivation? What did he do to plan for this crime? How much planning was involved? Because that'll also be important for proving that he had intent.
And you brought up something really important in all of this. You said, okay, we have the notes, they have the princesses' names, and it has the word bloodbath, but that's all we know. I mean, you're right. I looked into this story, I saw multiple sources. That's really all we know. And that's kind of the theme we have in this case, that the Netherlands is pretty tight lipped. We don't even know the suspect's name. But I guess that begs the question of how was this guy found out? We don't even know that. We don't know the date of his arrest. We don't know if somebody reported him. Like you've mentioned, there could be a potential cohort or somebody who's involved in all of this, how this guy was arrested or found out. And does that make a difference? For instance, if he came forward and said, hey, I was having this like mental health breakdown, I'm really nervous, comes forward to police and turns himself in, is that important to note versus one of his friends, let's say, who says, hey, I think this guy's really going to carry out something bad, I'm reporting him on behalf of the safety of the two princesses? I mean, does all of that hold a weight?
Sure, if it's the former, it doesn't sound like it is, but if it's the former and he turned himself in, I think that's going to, weigh heavily in his favor for perhaps a reduced sentence, perhaps suggests that he had remorse or understood that he was, under mental stress and mental duress and was thinking about doing things that were illegal and then turned himself in. But more likely, he was, not intending to turn himself in, and he was caught at some point during this crime, whether in the planning stage or whether he was getting close to execute on the crime. We don't know if someone turned him in or if he was, stopped by the police and the police became suspicious of him and searched him and found this note and these weapons.
You're right. We haven't heard it either way what exactly happened, but I kind of tend to agree with you. I think if there was a mental health crisis, that might have made a headline here. This person is now in psychiatric treatment or whatever, because sometimes things like that do happen. We haven't heard anything like that. So maybe this suspect was really getting close to carrying out this evil, sinister plot. And that leads to one of my other questions here too, because these are front-facing people. They're public figures. I mean, when I was looking for photos of them today, there are photos of these two when they're children, when they're babies, announcing the birth of the first princess, the second princess. We've followed them their entire lives. So is it possible that this suspect felt like he knew them, even if he didn't, where he was following them on social media, seeing them appearing on, the news or whatever, grew to think that he actually had a relationship with them? Is that something that is even possible?
Sure, that's possible. It's possible he was stalking them. It's possible that he would, has mental problems and somehow formed, in his head a relationship with them. But I also think it's possible that he was targeting them because targeting them is targeting the state, targeting the government of Netherlands, and he is, believe he's an anarchist and, a neo-Nazi. And so he may have seen them as a vulnerable, accessible targets because sometimes they are out, although because of previous threats to their lives, they're not out in the public as much as they would be.
I know. I was doing the research today and I was starting to feel kind of sad for them. I mean, I knew in some ways they obviously have a privileged life, get to see the world and, live in a palace, I guess. But one of the older sisters, I mean, she literally had to change where she was going to university because she was scared. She was worried. There have been other threats to her, physical safety in the past. And that's scary. We all should be able to go outside, walk our dog, go to college where we want to go. I mean, all of this it just is really hard to hear about. And I guess that leads into my next question about all of this. So again, Netherlands very tight-lipped. We don't even know what sort of charges he faces. And I'm just wondering what you surmise he might face. I mean, could it be attempted murder? Is it something that severe? Because he did have weapons, according to the reports we've seen. He had these 2 weapons with him. We know the note that said bloodbath. I mean, I know that you mentioned a hate crime in the past. What sort of charges would you kind of guess he may face?
Yeah, it would be attempted murder, attempted assault. That would be sort of one category. There could also be terrorism charges. You know, if he was targeting the state for political purposes, it could be considered terrorism, and then also potentially hate crimes. So I think those are 3 buckets of crimes, and the exact crimes will be determined based on the penal code or the criminal code in Netherlands, which is a code system, a civil law system.
Something else you said that was kind of interesting about all of this is that in the Netherlands, their mindset is more rehabilitation here, not in the same way as in the United States. And previous cases I've talked to you about, David, they have different, I guess, statutes for how long a person would be sentenced. For instance, if they commit murder here in the United States, it's possible they'll spend the rest of their natural born life in prison. Whereas other places I've talked to you about, they could get paroled in, 20 years, something like that. So as far as if this man was convicted, because again, he has yet to be convicted, that hasn't happened. He's innocent as of now. But let's say he is convicted. What sort of sentence do you think he would face?
Well, if he is convicted, it depends on what crimes he's charged with. Obviously, the crimes of, attempted murder, attempted assault, terrorism could come with pretty lofty penalties. But again, Netherlands is, significant because they have the lowest rate of incarceration in all of Europe. So there's an inclination to limit the term of incarceration for convicted criminals and give them a chance to be rehabilitated. They're put into rehabilitation programs. So we don't know exactly what he is charged with, and so it's hard to decide to know at this point how long the sentence will be. We also don't know if he might try to claim, not guilty by reason of insanity, which is essentially a defense in the Netherlands system. If he claims that he didn't know what he was doing because of mental issues, then that could lead to him being found not guilty, but likely also having to undergo medical treatment, mental treatment for his mental status, perhaps be put into a mandatory program until he's determined to be sane enough to be safe. So there are a lot of different ways this could go, but you can bet there's going to be a lot of focus on this given who the targets were.
Oh, yeah. And I would hope, too, because no person should have to feel like they're in danger at any point in their lives, leaving their home. These women should be free to do just that. And to your point, we're still so early on. We don't even know his charges. He's appearing in court today. This is one of those cases we're going to have to come back and follow again. So, David Tafiri, thank you for coming on Scandal and kind of breaking down what we do know right now.
Thank you.
And that's where today's episode of Scandal leaves us for now. If you like what you saw and want to see more or connect with me on social media, you can find me on places like Instagram at Sierra Gillespie. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. As always, I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.